The talk that I've prepared for you this evening is called Design for Local Food. And it's really a collection of the research and the ideas and the practice that I've been doing over the last couple of decades internationally around creating local food systems. And what I'm essentially wanting to focus on tonight is why do we need to consider local food? Many of you might be planners and designers. Can I just get a show? How many of you are actually designers, architects, planners, students of? How many of you are community gardeners? Weekend farmers? How many of you have a balcony garden with some pot or something? How many of you are thinking about moving to somewhere to find a spot of land to grow something? It's really, there are so many different ways to look at local food. I love to focus on food as a way to explore sustainable living, to explore ways that we can create sustainable cities, sustainable communities, to reconnect with our communities and reconnect with the environment. Because unless you're a breatharian, you eat. And so everyone has a relationship to food. And I don't actually know whether this is true or not, but I was reading something as I was preparing to come to Hong Kong, and it said that 50% of conversations in Hong Kong are food related. Wow, and there's such a strong and rich food culture, such a heritage around this, that in many cultures, in my country too, as countries urbanise, they disconnect from their food systems. They start to take for granted where food's coming from, disconnect from the seasons, disconnect from the whole process from the farm to the table. What we're talking about tonight is reconnecting to that and finding ways that we can all become participants again in our food system. It concerns me very much in Australia, for example, that the average age of our farmers is 65. Now that's kind of what I thought retirement age is. And I'm not sure of your average age here, but anyone have any idea of that? Any concept? No. The pattern is around the world similar to this. Farmers are aging. So cast your mind ahead. 20, 50 years, who are going to be the farmers of the future? What are our farms going to look like? Maybe they may be part of an urban system again, a peri-urban, woven back into the urban fabric. If we consider the oil situation of the cost of transportation and mechanised production become more and more expensive, how can we rethink our food system to be more in line with our current situation? So, what is the role of permaculture and urban agriculture in creating sustainable cities? What are some of the types of food systems that might be there? And how can using design actually really look at building resilient food systems? It's not just about putting a little garden somewhere. Food gardens are actually a platform for so much change, so much positive action. It's actually helping to re-establish the metabolism of the city, so the waste from the city, the wastewater goes back into the soil, and recreating those cycles so that we move away from cities as waste producers and consumers of resources to become cities as cyclers of nutrients and actually constructive and productive again in that very physical way. So, my background, as some mentioned, is as a permaculture educator and designer. I'm very much, I'm a lecturer in food systems, but my heart is so much alive and singing when I'm teaching with my hands in the earth and being part of community projects. So my experience is coming from very much getting involved in starting community gardens, starting my own garden, being part of setting up food box systems and the hands-on. And I think it's very much, we learn so much from actually just jumping in the deep end and giving it a go. There may be so many buts that come in our mind, oh, but it won't work here, or but this is wrong, or but that won't happen. Just dive in the deep end, grab a few friends and really try and make it happen. And these are the ways that many of the food systems that we've set up have happened. And we've been involved, my partner and I and our colleagues have worked in about 20 different countries with community food systems. So I hope that's something that may pop out for you. Not all of the ideas that I present you may find relevant, but you may find a spark of an idea in that might be able to be translated into a context that you understand. So please keep your minds open and to find if there's any ways that some of these ideas may be translated into your context right here. Also, as well as that connection to food, I think some of the reasons why I really think it's important that we focus as urbanites on our food system is that it's very vulnerable. We take it so much for granted, we assume that the food's just going to keep coming, but it's actually in a very fragile state. There's a saying that we're 9 meals away from disaster, or 9 meals away from hunger. In Australia recently we had massive droughts. I'm not sure if you heard about that. Not droughts, actually floods, the opposite. We had massive floods. And all the roads were cut off, the farms were cut off from the cities, and we got so close to actually running out of food. It was the most amazing thing because you go into a shop, into a supermarket, and the shelves were empty. There was no fresh food. Where the fresh food used to be, they placed canned tomatoes. And where the milk section was, there was bags of powdered milk. This is in Australia, this is in a capital city of a developed country, 9 meals away from disaster. Yet those projects like community food systems, the CSAs, the local food systems with the closer distribution networks were flooded with food. And so they were actually cooking up meals and sending them out to everyone else. They were the resilient systems, the ones that continued to work. And it was we were actually a bit worried that they'd not work as well and to have to eat our words that local food systems were fragile too, but it was good evidence that they continue to work. So we've seen a system at the moment that is fragile, and the people are uprising. That 40 countries there's been riots about food in recent years because of rising costs, from the rising cost of fuel, the rising costs because of droughts in different parts, the increase of food because of the use of biofuels. Do you have biofuels in your petrol here in Hong Kong? Ethanol? In many countries now, there's a target that you have 5, 10, 15% of your fuel for your cars coming from biofuels, which is basically a monoculture crop that's taking production land out. So anyway, this is all driving the price of fuel up and food up. We also have a third of the world's population pretty much malnourished. And that's hungry, undernourished, but also overnourished. So we're not feeding ourselves well in the way that we're doing it. We have a situation where the inequalities of our food system are so strong that a few years ago a study came out showing that over 200,000 Indian farmers committed suicide over a couple of years because of the unfair trade practices. And when we're buying cheap food from imported countries, we're actually not focusing on the impact that our choices are making in far parts of the world. So all of and they were the BT cotton growers, so that means the genetically modified cotton, which may have ended up in our clothing. So in many ways we're all participants in this global system. The list goes on. I won't actually go through the whole thing. There are just so many reasons why we really do need to refocus on our food system. And I was really surprised actually. I'd had this figure a long time ago that Hong Kong produced about 80% of its fresh vegetables in and around its area. And I found out recently it's only 3% now. That's a rapid decline in just a period of maybe, 2 decades? 80% to 3%. And that's happening not just in Hong Kong, that's happening everywhere. Our cities are gobbling up our agricultural land. they're gobbling up farmers, and we're seeking more and more far-flung places to seek our food, and it's an unstable system. It's not sustainable for us, and it's not sustainable for the planet. Because some of the other facts that really astound me are things like the distance that our food's travelled. In Australia, I don't have figures for research here, but an average distance that if I had one plate of food on my table, it's taken 2,500 kilometres to get from the farm to my table here. And that for every calorie that I eat, it's taken 10 calories of fossil fuels to actually get that to my mouth. So that's it. And when you think about peaking fuel supplies, rising fuel costs, our food again is only going to go up. For every plate of food too, it's taken 5,000 litres. That's like a massive water tank. To actually, so that would be a little bit of meat, a little bit of bread, a little bit of vegetables, and a glass of beverage. It's enormous. This is the hidden cost of our food system that we take for granted when we go into a supermarket and don't know where our food's come from, don't know how it's produced, don't know who's produced it, in what way, and what are the ethical considerations, and all those things behind it. What's the backstory to our food? How many of us know where it's come from, how it's produced by the farmer? And only when we start to reconnect with our farmers that we do. Some of the really important reasons why I do focus on food too is in Australia we have a lot of focus on reducing energy consumption, becoming green, reducing our carbon footprint, switch off the lights, drive a little bit less, catch a bit more public transport. But yet, 40% of our ecological footprint, our impact, is actually related to our food consumption patterns because of all the things I've just been talking about. And over 60%, or almost 60%, sorry, of our greenhouse gases are related to our food production system. So let's focus on food. It's just something that kind of falls off the edge. We look at all the other things, but how many times in a discussion about planning or legislation or design or whatever it might be, do we actually give a serious consideration to the impact that food is playing in our life and in our consumption of our Earth's resources? And I think it's really time that we put it on the front page and start giving it attention that it needs as a way to connect with people and a way to connect to create change, positive change, in a really delicious way. So food waste is another enormous issue too. I'm not sure of the exact figures in Hong Kong. I do know that it's about half a kilo per person per day that's wasted. So that's a third of 1 million kilos, a third, per day. It's enormous. In Australia, 50% of the food is wasted before it gets to the shops. Just wasted, it doesn't look quite right, it might be soiled or some way. And then when you get it back to your home, another 50% is wasted. So of all of that ecological footprint that's been created, people eat 25% of it. That's just ridiculous. And I'm sure there's a similar kind of level of food waste that happens here. How can we actually reduce that, bring the food miles closer, reduce the ecological footprint, put the waste of the city back into the soil to improve the whole cycle? So essentially I think a sustainable society, a sustainable city needs to have a sustainable food system at its core. We need to reweave food systems back into the urban fabric, and that means relocalising not just production but also distribution and some of the processing. So that requires a whole systems approach. It's not just thinking about going and getting a pot, putting some veggies in and that's okay. It's actually thinking about how it connects with our whole lifestyle and letting the way that we actually think about food dictate something about how we're actually living in our cities and in our neighbourhoods. Sung introduced about permaculture, so I won't really spend too much time on this except to say that essentially it's about designing for sustainable living. And at the core of that, there are three ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share. And so those ethics are which guide the type of design work and the programs that we're involved in. And I'm not sure how many of you heard of the concept of biomimicry. It's about learning from nature, how nature works, and then using that as a design model. So essentially that's really what permaculture is about too, looking at how a natural system works and then trying to find a way to design our lifestyle that works with nature rather than against it. And so that is about how we design our settlements, and that includes our cities and towns, our villages, and how we design our food systems and our metabolic systems around that.